Welcome to the New Life Stories channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching.
In bustling London, where every street tells its own story, lived Liam and me, Diana, a couple who had found a corner of happiness in the midst of the city's bustle. I, in my early 30s, was a dedicated cook with a passion for experimenting with flavors and textures, and Liam, in his 32, was an architect with an eye for detail that was reflected in everything he did. Our apartment became a reflection of our lives, a college of modernity and personal touches. "I love that this place really feels like what we dreamed of, doesn't it?" remarked Liam one afternoon as he looked around our cozy apartment. "Everything here has its own story, its own reason for existing." I smiled and nodded, chopping vegetables for dinner. "Yes, it's like our own little work of art. Every detail tells something about us." Our evenings were simple but full of warmth. Cooking together became one of our favorite activities, a dance between pots and pans to which everyone brought their own special touch. "Maybe we could add a little more spice this time," I suggested. "I trust your chef's instincts," he replied with a smile as he considered some plans on the dining room table. But as is often the case, life always takes unexpected turns, and ours was about to take an unexpected turn, challenging the calm of our daily lives and testing the strength of our relationship. It was a Saturday morning, the kind of morning when London resting, when she showed up in our neighborhood. Her name was Molly, a 28-year-old young woman whose energy seemed to light up the entire street. She was moving into an apartment directly across the street from ours, and her arrival did not go unnoticed. Laughter, music, and the sounds of boxes being unpacked filled the air. Liam and I leaned out the window, watching curiously. "Looks like we have a new neighbor," I commented, unable to help but notice her natural attractiveness and the ease with which she moved as if every step was a dance. "Really?" asked Liam, casting a brief glance around and returning to his morning coffee. His indifference calmed me down a little, but I couldn't deny the ache of jealousy I felt. "She's very pretty," I added, trying to speak detachedly. "You look so much prettier," Liam replied with a smile, kissing my forehead. I appreciated his words, but I couldn't help but wonder what he'd really think when he met her. A few days later, we ran into Molly in the hallway. His smile was infectious and his conversation was full of enthusiasm about life in the big city. "It's nice to meet new neighbors. I hope it didn't make too much noise with the move," she said with a laugh that sounded like music. "Not at all. It's good to have more living people in the house," Liam replied kindly. I couldn't help but notice the way his eyes followed her movements, and it gave me mixed feelings. Was it just politeness, or was there something more to his gaze? That night as we were making dinner, I couldn't help but revisit the topic. "Molly seems very nice, don't you think?" "Yeah, she is," Liam answered, concentrating on chopping vegetables. "But no one can compare to you." I wanted to believe what he said, but the little voice inside me was starting to doubt it. Molly's appearance added a new ingredient to our quiet life, and I wasn't sure how it would change the recipe for our relationship. In the weeks that followed, Molly's presence in the neighborhood became more prominent. His warm greetings every time we passed each other in the hallway, his occasional invitations for coffee, and his constant enthusiasm for exploring the city all seemed innocent at first. But I couldn't help but notice the way Liam would sometimes brood, staring off into the distance at Molly's door as we passed her apartment. One afternoon when Liam was at work, I found myself in the elevator with Molly. "Diana, I was just thinking about organizing a little get-together this weekend. Would you like to come? It would be great if you and Liam could join us," she said with a smile lighting up her face. "Sure, that sounds like fun," I replied, trying to hide the uncertainty in my voice. Part of me doubted if it was a good idea, but the other part of me wanted to see how the situation played out. Saturday came and the gathering at Molly's house was filled with people, music, and laughter. I watched Liam chatting with Molly, laughing at her anecdotes and sharing stories about the town. I felt a mixture of pride and nervousness at seeing him so outgoing, but I couldn't escape the shadow of doubt. Later, when I was helping Molly in the kitchen, I couldn't help myself. "Do you like the city so far?" I asked casually. "Oh, I love it. There's so much to see and experience," she said with genuine enthusiasm. "And amazing people," she added, casting a meaningful glance in Liam's direction. Back in the living room, I could feel the tension building. The way they looked at each other, though subtle, seemed to have a weight to it that hadn't been there before. Later, when we got back to our apartment, The image of them laughing together wouldn't leave my mind. "Did you have fun?" I asked Liam as we got ready for bed. "Yes, it was a good night. Molly is a very good hostess," he replied, seemingly without any concern. I lay there for a while longer, pondering. Something had changed, some subtle but palpable dynamic. I didn't know if it was just my imagination or if there really was something more between Liam and Molly. All I knew was that the relationship between us had started to change one way or another, and I wondered where this new chapter would take us. Weeks went by and my anxiety grew. Liam seemed the same as always, but every little thing, every detached look, every smile when I received a text on his phone made me wonder. Is it possible that there's something going on between him and Molly? Or was it just the ghosts of my insecurities making up stories that didn't exist? One night, as Liam and I ate dinner in silence, a question flashed through me. "Have you ever been interested in anyone else in the time we've been together?" My voice sounded more anxious than I expected. Liam looked at me in surprise, putting the cutlery down on the table. "Where did that come from, Diana? Are you hinting at Molly?" No, I wasn't. I tried to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. I just wondered that sometimes, he sighed, taking my hand. "Diana, I love you. I've never had an interest in anyone else, really. Honey, are you okay?" And there it was, the question I couldn't answer. Am I okay? Am I seeing signs where there aren't any? Was my unfounded jealousy driving a wedge between us? I began to notice how my doubts were affecting our relationship. I became irritable, sometimes reacting violently to Liam's affectionate gestures and immediately feeling guilty. "I'm sorry." I started to say it more often, not realizing what I was apologizing for. One afternoon when Liam was in the living room, I decided to discreetly observe him. Was there anything in his demeanor that would indicate a change? But all I saw was the man I loved relaxing in our house and enjoying a book. Am I going crazy? I asked myself. Could it be that I was letting my fears and jealousy make up a story that didn't exist? I didn't want to lose Liam, but at the same time I felt like I was pushing him away for no reason. That night, lying in bed, I watched Liam sleep, his calm face, his peaceful breathing. I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe in us, but some little voice in my head kept asking, what if there's more to it than that? What if jealousy isn't just jealousy? Insecurity became my constant companion, and I knew I had to find a way to confront it, for better or worse. The next few days passed in a sort of emotional fog. I watched Liam leave for work. Occasionally I exchanged a few words with Molly in the hallway, and each of those interactions left me with more questions than answers. Was it just me, or was there more to those smiles and casual conversations? One Friday afternoon, I decided to visit a friend, Helena, in search of some clarity. "I'm totally confused, Helen," I confessed to her, sipping coffee in her cozy apartment. "I don't know if it's unfounded jealousy or if there really is something between Liam and Molly." Helen, sensible as ever, looked at me with concern. "Have you talked to Liam about this? I mean, really talked directly?" "Yeah, but everything seems so normal when I do. I feel like I'm exaggerating. That night when Liam came home, I tried to act normal. But something about his behavior seemed different than usual to me. He was quieter than usual, deep in thought. Is something wrong, Liam?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "I've been thinking," he began hesitantly. "How about we take Molly out to dinner tomorrow night? I think it would be nice to get to know her better, make her feel more welcome in the neighborhood." This idea caught me off guard. Was this an opportunity to see how they interacted with each other, to dispel my doubts? "Sure, that sounds like a good idea," I replied, though a part of me twitched with nervousness. Dinner with Molly was filled with a bright, seductive energy. From the moment she walked in, wearing a dress that seemed to hug every curve of her figure, I knew this evening was going to be different. His stories of exotic escapades and nocturnal adventures were told with a twinkle in his eyes that mesmerized me. "You must have broken hearts on every continent," I joked, pouring another round of wine. Molly laughed, her laughter sounding like music. "Oh, maybe one or two, but I always like to leave behind happy memories." Liam, always the perfect host, watched us with a smile, though he seemed more interested in the wine than the conversation. The tension I'd felt at the beginning of the evening dissipated, giving way to a growing fascination with our guest. At one point, while Liam was busy in the kitchen, Molly leaned over to me, her eyes gleaming mischievously. "Diana, something in your eyes tells me you're not as innocent as you seem." I felt a fire light up inside me. "Well, they say chiefs always keep a secret or two," I replied, playing with the rim of my glass. "I'd like to learn those secrets one day," she whispered with a look that made me question everything I knew so far. The rest of the evening passed in a whirlwind of laughter, shared glances, and electric tension in the air. Every time our hands accidentally touched, I was overwhelmed with a flood of emotions. After Molly left, I began to think about what had happened. It was a new and disconcerting sensation. The attraction I felt for her was something I had never experienced before. Sitting on our couch after Molly left, I couldn't help but think about what had happened. I had started the evening with a mixture of curiosity and jealousy, fearing that Molly might pose a threat to my relationship with Liam. But through an unexpected turn of events, I discovered that the person Molly was truly fascinated by was me. It was such an unexpected discovery that it seemed almost surreal. All this time I'd been worried that Liam might be infatuated with her, but it turned out that I was the one who was completely enamored. How did that happen? How did I go from insecurity and jealousy to feeling that spark, that connection with Molly? I remembered every encounter we'd had, conversations filled with laughter and complicity, and the way his presence made me feel alive in ways I couldn't explain. And then it all made sense. It wasn't jealousy I felt. It was an attraction I'd been trying to ignore to explain in another way. I laughed to myself, thinking of the irony of the situation. I'd been so preoccupied with Liam, and now I was caught up in a whirlwind of new and confusing emotions. How crazy! I muttered out loud, still processing what had happened. Life really is capable of surprises. This is the end of my confession. I want you to help me make a decision. What would you do in my situation? I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to continue to enjoy shocking relationship stories, I invite you to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and see you next time.